in color, the continuing story of Peyton Place. Starring Dorothy Malone as Constance Mackenzie, Ed Nelson as Michael Rossi, Ryan O'Neill as Rodney Harrington, Barbara Parkins as Betty Anderson, Tim O'Connor as Elliot Carson, Christopher Connolly as Norman Harrington, Patricia Morrow as Rita Harrington, James Douglas as Stephen Cord.
Rachel Wells disappeared from the Carson house this morning and sought out Jack Chandler at the hospital. Chandler, bruised and bandaged from his fight with Elliot Carson, ignored Rachel's plea that he leave the Carsons alone, that he leave Peyton Place. Instead, Chandler promised only one thing: to strike back at the Carsons and Rachel.
Have you any idea how worried I've been?
Mrs. Carson,
You went to see Jack Chandler.
yes, I did.
That was a very foolish and inconsiderate thing for you to do.
I had to go see him. I had to try and convince him to go away.
You can't talk to a man like Chandler. You can't deal with him. I should think you'd know that by now.
I couldn't just give up trying, especially not after Mr. Carson fought with him and got into all this trouble.
You had to try, knowing what it would do to us. You see, that's the problem, Rachel. I never know when you'll decide to run away again. We can't depend on you. We can't trust you.
Mrs. Carson, I want you to understand why I went to see him. You don't know what it's like living with somebody like that. It's like somebody you read about in the newspapers, except he's terrible and he's twisted. When I was 14 years old, a boy used to come and visit me at the farm. He was a nice boy. And one day, either on a dare or just for the fun of it, he kissed me on the cheek. Well, just then Chandler came back. He'd been out hunting. And when he saw the boy kiss me, he loaded his shotgun and he chased him, yelling curses at him and firing at him. He didn't aim to hit the boy, but the boy's foot got stuck in one of these animal traps that Chandler used to set for prowlers. Well, he yelled for help. His foot was broken, and he begged to be let go. Chandler had locked me in the basement, but I heard the boy's cries. Finally, his father came and found him and took him to the hospital.
Didn't his father do anything?
He didn't do anything. After a while, they just picked up and left. But the neighbors didn't do anything either. They just sat and waited for somebody to stand up to Chandler. That's how afraid everybody is of him. No matter what the police do to Mr. Carson, it won't be enough for him. He'll get back at all of us. That's why it's important that you and Matthew have a safe place. Some place where he won't be able to find either one of you.
You mean you want us to move away? Like the boy and his father? Run? You know, I was very harsh with Elliot last night because of what he did. And because I was afraid. Like your neighbors. I wanted somebody to stand up to Jack Chandler. Anyone. But not my husband. Well, Elliot's out of jail now. I am still afraid. But we're not going to run. We're going to stay and face it. I think Matthew needs an outing now.
Thank you for trusting me.
All right, now, Rita, you understand that, don't you? 1 week of complete bed rest.
Well, can't I even?
No, you can't even. Now, if I'm going to discharge you from the hospital today, you're going to spend the week in bed at home. That means no cooking, no ironing, no washing.
Brother.
Well, I heard you, Doctor.
Norman, I want you to get this prescription filled out at the pharmacy. Make sure she takes 1 tablet before breakfast every morning. Also, I'm going to put you on a low-salt diet.
No salt?
No, a low-salt diet. That means don't go sprinkling salt all over your food, huh? I understand, Doctor.
I just heard him wrong. I'm not stupid.
Okay. Well, it might be a good idea to prop those pillows up behind you when you get home, too, because that way it'll help you breathe more easily.
Be just like an Oriental princess.
Sure.
Well, that's about it. Except I think you might get a practical nurse in the afternoon to help you cook and bathe and things like that.
Good.
No, that's not necessary. Besides, it's too expensive.
Quiet. So why don't you let me fill out that prescription? You all can argue.
Okay, I'll meet you outside.
Fine.
Martin, Peyton speaking.
Hello, Grandfather. This is Rodney.
Rodney, to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?
Oh, nothing very pleasant, I'm afraid. I'm at the hospital. She's seriously ill. She's had an attack. Dr. Rossi asked her to spend the night.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Listen, now, you've got to help Norman. You have to make him take some money from you. Rita's going to need medication. She's going to need a nurse.
I suggest you get over here as soon as you can. We can talk about it more sensibly here.
Well, all right. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Thank you, Rodney.
Excuse me, Mr. Costa. Something wrong?
Only temporarily, I hope. Things have a way of working out.
Is, Rodney coming over?
Yes, but we won't disturb your sitting. We'll talk downstairs.
Dr. Rossi, you should have been here a little earlier.
Rachel's here. That's right. She heard I got waylaid by Carson. She came to see if there was anything she could do. It's kind of funny. You people did everything you could to turn her against me, and she still comes back. She comes to see me.
Take a deep breath, will you, Chandler? Does that still hurt?
Not so bad.
Well, you're coming along fine. I think all you need now is some rest. At home, we'll try and discharge you very soon.
Okay. I guess you heard that I signed a complaint against your buddy, Elliot Carson.
Yes, I heard.
They'll be having a hearing. You'll be invited. Well, I suppose I should warn you.
Now, what's that supposed to mean?
You're an important man in this town, Dr. Rossi. Well, the nurses told me that you're in charge of this whole hospital.
Come on, get to the point, will you? I don't have time for long-winded speeches.
You better have time to listen. You know, doctors are supposed to be patient, especially with sick people. The point is that you patched me up and you patched up the guy that did this to me, so they'll call you to give evidence about the fight. And I'm warning you that you better just stick to the medical stuff.
I'll tell the police whatever it is they want to know about you, Chandler, and I hope they want to know everything.
I don't think you better. You could lose your job. After all, chief of staff has to have dignity. He can't get mixed up in young girls' lives. That's right. I tell them all about you and Rachel. Innocent young girl that could be your daughter, but you don't think about it that way.
You're really twisted, aren't you?
Well, I'd have to tell them. Ever since Rachel came to this town, you've been trying to get her for yourself. When she hurt her hand, you dropped everything else so you could be her doctor, she could take care of her. You bought her fancy clothes, gave her presents. It's a funny way for a man your age behaving to some young girl.
Are you serious? I mean, just look at you. You're laying there in the bed, your arms in a sling, you got your ribs all taped up, your face banged up, and you're threatening me. Now, can you really be serious?
How are you going to explain when Rachel was in my room of her own free will that you came busting in there like some kind of a jealous boyfriend and forced her to come with you? To say nothing of the fact that you almost slugged me because I told you Rachel and me didn't want you interfering with our lives.
You're wasting your breath.
Sure. You're a doctor. You're a professional man. We'll see how it looks to people when they know what your weak spot is.
Chandler, the sickness of what you just said convinces me that I was wrong when I broke into your room and took Rachel out of there. I was wrong because I controlled myself. Elliot Carson is right. No matter what happens to him, he's right. Dead right.
Elliot? Oh, hi, Steve. Thanks for coming.
Chance, you hung up on me.
I was in a hurry.
You've gone off half-cocked. You can't keep taking the law into your own hands. You're charged with felonious assault on the person of one Jack Chandler, and here you are breaking into his room, wrecking his property.
All right, stop lecturing me, will you, Steve? I told you before, this guy Chandler, ever since he's got into this town, has been pretending he's some kind of a misunderstood boob. Actually, he's an ex-con that served time for criminal assault.
Jack Forrest, all right, you've got something definite. Now, let's take that information and use it. Now, what you're doing here, this isn't going to help.
Well, it's helping me. I could find something. Anything, I don't know what. Some kind of evidence that I could put him away for good. Or at least keep him from ever. Here, look at that. I found it in the suitcase. What's he doing with that anyway? You want me to sit and wait for due process of law while he plots and figures how he's going to get Rachel?
Elliot, calm down. He'd live with her, he helped raise her. It's just a picture.
A picture of what? His next victim? Next in a long line that may even include my own daughter?
What does he know about Allison?
Rachel found Allison's bracelet in the floor of his car. On the floor of his car, Stephen. If he's had anything to do with her, if he's made her suffer in any way at all.
Look, I understand. I know how you must feel, but you can't
No,
assume...
you don't know how I feel. No one knows how I feel. I've had it sit in my hands for months, waiting for something I could use, something I could make work, some kind of a lead that wouldn't prove itself to be a dead end. Anything at all that'd tell me Allison was all right, that she was still alive. And then what do I find? Evidence that confirms my worst doubts, my worst fears. That she was in Chandler's car. That a man convicted of criminal assault was with her.
I'll go to the district attorney. We'll get the grand jury to investigate, seek a criminal complaint. But you can't expect too much, Elliot. There's not much to go on. Not yet, anyway.
Well, I had enough to go on to kill him. I almost did it, too, there on the wharf when he was lying down. All of a sudden, all I wanted to do was to kill him. Was to smash his ugly, rotten face. I don't suppose you understand anything like that anyway.
Yes, I do. I do understand. I've felt that way myself. No, I'm not proud of it. And it wasn't someone with an ugly, rotten face. It was my wife. Now, look, there is a difference, though, between wanting to kill someone and actually doing it. Now, that moment passed for me as it did for you. We didn't kill anybody, Elliot. Thank God for that.
What are you asking me to do anyway? Count my blessings?
In a way. Now, in my case, I was wrong about Rod and Betty. In this business, if you had killed Chandler, it wouldn't have brought Allison back. And it certainly would have ruined your wife's life and your son's, too. Now, why not let the police handle this? Let them get a search warrant and look for evidence. Now, come on, I'll help you put things back.
That difference you spoke of, about thinking about it and actually doing it, I don't think that applies to me.